Hey, Champion Nation. My name is Kayshawn, and I am the host of the Champion Nation podcast. Thank you for stopping by the Champion Nation YouTube channel. Today, you are in for a treat, a wonderful treat. If you yourself, or if you know someone who have uh, had a near death experience, an NDE, today you are in for a treat. I have Franklin Hernandez. He'll be joining me today, joining us today as he walk us through and take us through the journey of his NDE. If you ever wanted to know their perspective on how was it like during that moment or moments where they were knocking on death's doorstep. This is a great opportunity for you to tune in to listen to Franklin's perspective. You won't be disappointed. So see you on the other side. Hey, Champion Nation, I told you you were in for a treat. I have here right now with us, Mr. Franklin Hernandez, a brother from another mother. How you doing, Franklin?
I am doing so good and so happy to be here with you, Kay Shannon, and your beautiful program. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I can't stop smiling. I'm so excited. I could not wait for this moment. I could not wait for this moment. But Franklin, you're a dad. You're so many things, and how we met each other. If you don't mind me just taking just a few moments to just talk about briefly how we met each other. We met each other doing good. We have known each other for some time now. I was doing good, helping people, and so were you. You were doing good and helping those who you help. And it's almost funny how the universe knows how to bring two spirits and multiple spirits together, or kindred spirit. If you're liking the same thing and loving the same thing and passionate about the same thing, the universe has a way of connecting the dots. And I'm so grateful to God and the universe that I was fortunate and honored enough to be blessed and graced with your presence. So thank you, Franklin.
And thank you for not only mirroring my heart, but also thank you so much for following the guidance of your own heart. And that's why we're here.
I appreciate that. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Franklin, during the times that you and I have met, our conversations that we've had, you've shared something with me that really piqued my interest. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that experience led to a book that you wrote. Is that true?
That is correct.
Okay, okay. Well, I won't belabor any longer. People want to know. I want to know about this NDE, this near death experience. So the floor is all yours, Franklin. Tell us about it.
Um, in today's day and age, a lot of people, when you say near-death experience, do know what that means. That's something that it was on my radar before it took place. Um, in a way, I've always been interested about life after death. Um, I've um, I've always been intrigued with it, but it was until really it took place that then everything changed for me, and that's when I really started to see if what took place for me was something that is is unique, because the ego tells you, no, this is a very unique experience. But then when I started to really study about near-death experiences, what captured my attention in a very powerful way, in literally immediately, is that this is something that has been recorded for now many years. The beauty of it is that there is a common denominator, that it doesn't matter of the race, it doesn't matter of your geographical location, gender is not a factor. There is common denominators of when somebody has a near-death experience, and that's what immediately I started to realize. Oh my goodness! Obviously, I am not alone, and also put me on a place to reflect even deeper of what took place, and also what kind of meaning I was interpreting or drawing from that transcendental experience.
How long ago did this take place? Was this recent or some time ago?
It was about 6 years ago, in February. Um, I'm going to say that um, I've had, before that, I had an experience that I would say that it was supernatural when in 1993 I was working. I just literally arrived to this great country. I was working as a bouncer at a restaurant, and at the end
You
of,
were a bouncer?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't look the part, but um, I was working as a bouncer. My shift finished at 4 a.m. And literally the moment that it finished, I was about to just relax a little bit because I didn't have to be at the door. I heard somebody saying, who speaks English, and the guy waved a gun. There was somebody in the restaurant bar that this person with the gun was saying that he offended his wife and that he offended him, that he was a gangster, that he could kill anybody on a drop of a hat.
Wow.
Immediately, I was thinking about immediately grabbing the gun, but I saw a guy right behind them coming with another gun, and I said, "This is something that you will not win." But I'm mentioning that is because for me, that was close to 25 years before my near-death experience. It was a quick glimpse of phenomena, and the reason I say that is because the guy is telling me, I'm going to kill you. He's probably about 2 feet. His gun is about 1.5 feet. He's like about 2 feet from me. And when I am kind of negotiating with him, I noticed that I was really calm. No one has ever pointed a gun at my face. I was literally looking at the barrel of the gun. And at
Wow.
the same time that I am talking to him, I am pondering, you're really calm and you're about to get killed here. So in one moment, the guy says, you don't understand. He gave me a very weird smiles, like, you don't understand. I am an assassin. And then he fires the gun at me, point blank in my face. So I'm going to describe it as if I am a reporter without any kind of, as best as I can, emotional charge to it.
Wow.
Because when he fired the gun, when you hear a gun being fired, is a click and then an explosion, the detonation. So when he clicked the gun, when he fired the gun, time literally stopped so fast. And I said, this is in the span of, to fire a gun takes literally less than a second. And I said, I cannot believe that I just arrived in this country and in less than a year, I'm about to be killed. I thought about my family back then. And then I said
Wow.
again, I cannot believe that I am feeling so calm and you're just going to die right now. And when I said that, I look to the left, and in my shoulder there is a hand. And when I look up to what is at the end of that hand, I see my dad, who died 3 years before, with the most beautiful smile and literally glowing. And I told him in this very nonchalantly, like, what are you doing here? You're dead. He gives me a bigger smile. And when I look to the left, the gun jams. And then this guy that was really built up, he kind of, I literally saw him deflating, like he was, like if something took, like if you take a balloon and you suck the air out really quick, and he deflated, and when he deflated, he put the gun down, and then indeed two gangsters, two of his cronies came from side to side, grabbed him by each shoulder, and took him to a car. When I saw the car leaving, my knees buckled and I fell on the floor because I couldn't make sense of it. So I'm saying that is because when stuff like that happens, what usually takes place is that since there is a such an intense shock to the psyche, and we are witnessing something that we're not used to, immediately the brain goes into first making sense of it and also
Okay.
interpreting the purpose of it. It's something that is literally inevitable. What I draw, and I was only 23 years old, was that, wow, first, that was my dad. There's no mistake. And why did he save my life? Oh, I've heard that everybody has a purpose. Um, what could be mine? And that euphoria, uncertainty, puzzlement, um, anger, rage lasted maybe 3, 4 days. And then that window of me contemplating life differently, as if I had a purpose, closed. And little by little, I went back onto my own self routine. I do remember that event, but that what usually happens with people, because when you have a an event like that that can be traumatic, it is not necessarily is going to create everlasting positive change, but it's a great catalyst. But in my case,
Right.
that was not the case. So I'm going to fast forward to 2017,
Okay.
where I have been, I learned to do meditation in 1998. So it was almost 20 years that I've been practicing meditation. And
Okay.
um, I am sitting meditating, and probably maybe an hour into it, I started to feel a pressure in my chest. And the first thing that I thought, I was 46 years old back then, the first thing that I thought was my dad, who, as I mentioned before, when that I had that incident in 1993, he was dead 3 years before. My father died from a heart attack at 48. He had his first
Wow.
heart attack at 42, and then
Wow.
second one at 48, and then the third one 3 months after at that same age, and that took him.
Wow. Wow.
My dad died in my arms of that heart attack. So I knew I had a very good idea when something like that happens. It's if everything else falls, on the side. You're so focused on something like that. And
Right.
the first thing that came as I'm feeling this pressure on my chest was, I cannot believe this. I cannot, am I getting a heart attack? I cannot believe that my dad is going to outlive me. My dad was somebody who, the heart attack was related to alcoholism. And
Okay.
I'm saying to myself, I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. Um, what's going on? And the pressure is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I notice that I'm not feeling an irradiating pain on my left arm. Usually, that's an indication of getting a heart attack. So the pressure is getting bigger, and I heard the sweetest voice, different than mine. It said, "Surrender." And when I heard that, I knew that phrase really well. And at that moment, I did that. I surrendered and I expired. And the moment that I expired, that I felt the breath coming out, the breath had a form, as if it's a soul. And be,
Wow.
and before I continue, I want to say something. What I'm going to express, what I expressed before, and what I'm going to express now. If for some reason it triggers or activates you or any of your viewers, my invitation is for you to just take that and drop it in the heart. And if you feel expansion, then that might be true for you. And if you feel contraction, it's not. And just put it aside and let's continue. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Perfect. So the moment that I felt the soul coming out from my mouth as the breath, my chest that was feeling this pressure, it was like an implosion, and then it totally opened, and I felt this light literally coming out of me. The moment that I came out of me, I saw the body dropping, and when the body fell, it was a very quick. I looked back and I saw the body of Franklin, and so quickly I said, "Who is that?" "Oh, that's me." But it was just that quick recognition or identification with this body that I use. And then what people say that you go towards a light at the end of the tunnel,
Yeah. Yes.
in my experience, it was that I was that light that was becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and engulfing everything. And when that happens, then what is a common denominator on near-death experiences, which is usually known as the life review, took place. And the life review for me, there was no language, there was no English, or my first language is Spanish. There was none of that. It was only a gnosis, a knowing. And in this case, it was something as big as like an IMAX theater of the highest definition possible. And that life review formed itself in front of me as if it was a deck of cards with gigantic cards, and it was just going, and I was seeing countless, if not infinite, images, but not only of this lifetime, but also what seemed to be other lifetimes, other characters. But I was immediately, I had the gift, or I entered this space of omniscience where I knew um, not really what the meaning of each a slide would say or each photograph would mean, but really what was on everybody's heart at that moment. The pain that was caused, the love that was received, the love that was given, the pain that I was received, everything from every single perspective. And it was a quick download of the highest capacity as I am understanding that in a way, wow, it seems that I was every single one of those characters. So I'm going to fast forward at the very, very end of this experience when everything in a way subsided. I am getting this feeling that something really big is not approaching, has always been there, but it's being revealed to me at that moment. And just before that took place, this light that was everything, that was kind of projecting every single slide that I'm describing, came and totally collapsed into this very small dot and then became this void. That it was black. It was, even though it was black, had an aliveness to it. And even though it was black, had like a texture, like a velvety texture.
Hmm.
And I felt an embrace, but when I felt that, not only that I felt this embrace, I realized that I have been there before. And as I am totally giving myself to this experience, at that moment when I felt like I can end it all right now was like the thought. And the ending it all was for me to totally surrender at that moment any kind of identification, not only previous identification as this form, but every single identification I've had before. And as I felt that, I totally let go. I didn't want to become attached to anything. And when I did that, then I felt as if I became one with this form. And when that took place, at that moment, there's so many things that I have read before. I'm not a Bible quoter, but a couple of things that really stood out of that experience was one time that Jesus said, "I'm in this world, but not of it." I
Oh,
realized that
okay.
that came to life, and also the one that it was just before this explosion of unconditional love. I heard, "Behold, I make all things new." And when that took place, and I gave myself totally to this being, immediately I knew that this was the being that created me at some point, which felt it was like at that moment that I was being created. But this is the part that can be kind of difficult for the mind to be able to understand is that
Hmm.
this being that knew everything, absolutely everything that I have ever done, good, the bad, and the ugly, we want to put it on those terms, saw no blemishes and just welcomed me. And I felt as if I was going back to this fountain. And the moment that I drank for it, I realized that I will never forever be thirsty. And
Hmm.
when that took place, then I felt a sense of unconditional love that it doesn't matter if I would have the gift of eloquence, it doesn't matter if I had lifetimes to explain, I will never be able to scratch the surface of this sense and knowing of unconditional love. And when I experienced that, I knew that I was one with God. And when I totally gave myself once more and became one with it, it felt that not only at that moment that everything has been okay. I stayed in that space for, I thought that the whole thing was about 5 minutes, but out of a sudden I literally felt um, as if I I was like 150 pounds of a bag of rice dropped back into the body, and I felt as if I was coming back to the body. And boom, when that happened, I literally jolted and opened my eyes, and I realized that indeed Franklin has not died, and that I was in the same place that I was. I also saw that after a little while, that about an hour and a half went by, but that was the initial of what happened. The very, like, very freaking out. What took place? I didn't know what to make of it. Remembering everything still so raw. And I literally stayed, just sitting with my own being, and also doing the best I could to meditate and bring myself down for the next hour or so. But after everything started, like the dust started to settle, and when once it did that, it is um, an understatement to say that my life from that moment on was never the same.
I I have so many questions, and I know we don't have a lot of time, but one thing that I gathered from that, and thank you so much, Franklin, for sharing that. One thing I gathered from everything that you said, and I'm still trying to consciously gather um, your perspective, but it really sounds like it boiled down to one thing, and that was surrendering.
100%.
It, if if you didn't surrender, what do you think the outcome would have been?
Ah, so going back to when you kind of laughed when I said that I was a bouncer. I used to be bullied in high school, and at some point I said I need to do something about this, and I need to learn how to fight. And the irony was that when I learned how to fight, I kind of became, it sounds immodest, but in about 6 months, I became really good. I had a real
Okay.
aptitude to it. Um, and from that moment on, uh, people were not picking on me. I'm like, what's going on? Why don't you pick on me? Now I'm ready to say, hey, what do you think you're doing? In the mind of a
Right.
19-year-old boy. Um,
Absolutely.
so the reason why and I'm going to go back even more, everything is a build up. And I realized that we come in to create experiences that will take us to, on one moment, a transcendental moment like that. When I hear the surrender, I knew exactly what it meant, because if you wake me up in the middle of the night as a fighter, and that's why I got the job as a bouncer, um, and this applies, the irony, and this applies not only to fighting, but to everything in life. And I say that I don't like to speak in absolutes, but I absolutely believe in the real intentions and motives of your heart. If you wake me up in the middle of the night and you ask me what is the thing that you've learned the most about fighting, I will tell you in one breath that everything has a force. Or you embrace it or you deflect it. Why oppose it? So when I was faced, not with an opponent, but when I was faced with this experience and I heard surrender, I said, I cannot deflect this. I cannot resist it, oppose it. I need to embrace it. And the best way to embrace it is just, all right, surrender. And big difference, surrendering doesn't mean you won, I lost. Surrendering is giving yourself to it, however that looks like. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It does make sense. And and that surrendering led you to becoming an author, and also led to uh, a, a website or something. Yeah, website that you have, and the book Come Breathe With Me. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, you do.
The premises of that book, what is it?
Um, in the months after this NDE, I I lost a lot of identification with everything. Um, I still trade stocks for a living. Um, I lost identification with that. It was very difficult for me to engage with friends, with family. Um, but the one thing, as I was trying to quote unquote make sense of what happened, was it was like now this knowing within me saying, I'm not supposed to be trading stocks for a living. So God, what is that I'm supposed to be doing? And not long after that, it was you're supposed to assist others in their end of life. I'm like, what? Yes, that's what you're supposed to be doing. But God, all loving and all compassionate, it was also this knowing of like, you can do it if you want to, but it's gonna be easier if you embrace or surrender to this
Right.
too.
Right.
So I love the relationship because for the first time, this God that I used to just see as a lot of the times as a punishing God, now out of that experience, I was always seen as a loving God with never-ending patience, and I'm still kind of having dialogues with my Creator for a few more months until one day I literally said, so I'm supposed to be assisting others when they're dying, huh? And why is that? And then um, I literally remember it brought me back to when my dad died, how comfortable, in a way, like familiar with somebody dying. Because I totally, not only he died in my arms, but I went through, I'm the oldest of three. I went through the whole thing of the funeral and comforting others and so on. And the same year my dad died, two more close family members died. And my family were seeking for me to assist them in that process. And when God brought me to that, said, "You have a gift for this." And kind of when I felt it, going back to my invitation to you and your viewers, when I took that and I dropped that in my heart and I felt this expansion, I literally said, um, "Okay, God, so that's exactly what I'm going to do." So I literally said that, and about 40 minutes after I said that, I got a phone call from a friend. I was living up in Washington, D.C., telling me, I don't know why I'm calling you. My father is dying. I don't know, again, why I'm calling you. You can please come and help me. And I was looking like it was a candid camera. But that's when I knew that everything is really inside of me because how come somebody else would know an admission or a surrender into this? So I went and that took place, and behold, his father died that day. But um, the writing the book stayed with me for a few years. Until then, I met somebody in a class that is given globally, spiritual class, studies of consciousness, I would say. And this person, I told her, the teacher, the instructor, the guide of this class, what I tell everybody when I invite people to meditate, I don't say, hey, would you like to meditate with me? I say, would you like to breathe with me? And when I tell her, would you like to breathe with me? Something
Wow.
triggered within her that she felt also a recognition. And when she asked me why, I said, well, because and she knew about my experience, when I died, I realized that we are that breath of life that infuses this astronaut suit that
That's a great way to put it.
at some
Way to
point
put
we
it.
turn it in, and that's why we literally see when it's being turned in, we see how people collapse, and we don't see an aliveness that was there before. It was because this breath of life that infuses us and that animates you has transformed itself into something else. So that's the 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 the, um, the cornerstone of why the book was named "Come Breathe with Me."
Wow. You know, you mentioned something about prior to your experience, you thought that God was this all punishing, mean God that I'm going to send you to hell type of person. Um, can you elaborate that? Can you elaborate more on the type of relationship that you have now from dying? It sounds like something was born out of your death.
Um, that's a great question, Peshan. I am trying to condense, in this visit with you, um, something that it was not only the visuals and also the interpretation of those images. Um, it was a lot. And as I said, that Bible verses came to life. There were so many things also from this life that popped into that experience. And this is what is triggering as you're asking me this question. I was born and raised Catholic. Uh, Went to Catholic school my whole life. So I had, for me, was passed down the way that Catholics approach God in that sense. So a big influence in my life was my grandma, who, when I used to spend time with her, she was the kind of person that would go to mass every single day, not only Sundays. So when I was with her, I always was intrigued in going to the church because I felt like I was learning something. I got really bored quick because I felt it was kind of like the same thing. The sermon was the only different thing. I never liked like the monotony of anything as nice as it could be. But I remember once that I asked my grandmother, I said, if God is so good, if God is love, why will God punish me when I die? And that really kind of, I triggered her because, what are you doing? Are you questioning the Bible? I said, no, I'm asking you a question. I was, mind you, I was literally 7 years old. I can't remember this like it was today, but I
Wow.
remember it more because this is one of the things that came up when I had the NDE. So I remember that back and forwards with my grandma. And then when I'm having this experience, it was not from the standpoint of the ego saying, I was right and you were wrong. No, it was like, I knew it. I knew you were that benevolent that even though you know everything I've done, you're not going to be like, okay, you've done this and this and that. You got to wait for me on that place that we call this a holding pattern or however you want to call it. My interpretation of it was that, yes, this being that gave me the free will in order to explore life and understand itself, not only out of me, but out of every single being, is doing this with a reason of one, getting to know itself, and two, that this free will that it gave me, and I say it because we can call God he or she. I felt and saw no gender. I felt something that is absolutely absolute and complete. So if that was the case, there's no lack, there's no the duality that we know as humans, as you are man, I'm man, and oh, that is a person that is a woman, or now let's ask if she feels that she is a woman. God is everything. So the way that it changed my life after I come back was starting with the sense of omniscience that I had when I was seeing every single slide on this live review, where I knew the heart of every single of those characters. I realized that it was not only there, it's also here. It's also on not only human beings but every single object. That God is really everywhere. And as I was continuing to take that and drop it in my heart and feel this expansion, as I was feeling a union with everything, it did so many, many things within me. The most important one of them was to really, really follow my heart. And the same voice or knowing or nudging that we sometimes feel, the one that I feel is the same one for every single one of us. I think that the difference is that I I yield to it more than anybody else. I always say that um, if Noah would be alive today, Noah would be doomed. And the reason is
What do you
because
mean by that?
you know what I mean. Why? because because Noah heard this voice of, hey, build this ark. I'm going to
Ah,
end this whole thing and I'm going to start anew. And I need you to build an ark, and this is what is going to take place. And when and Noah is listening to this. It's like, it hasn't rained here in hundreds of years. What are you talking about?
absolutely.
But Noah knew that voice, was able to distinguish it from another voice that is not the voice of truth. Can be really tricky, right? Why? Because this voice, this guidance with capital V, with capital G, besides being all knowing, besides really seeing the beginning and the end, a lot of the times might not sound as logical as the mind with little m, with lowercase m, because this mind with capital M has seen everything. So in my case, what has done two very important things. I follow my heart today more than any other time that I can recall. And two, has also built, and now in the last few months, a bigger sense of urgency. I realize that we use words. we have become desensitized a lot towards like when something bad happens and I want to, be a friend to you. I would say, hey, Keishan, I'm so sorry, but hey, you know that everything happens for a reason.
Right.
Um, or
Yep.
hey, or it, let's say, for example, that you're regretting something and I said, hey, what are you feeling like that? Life is too short. We have become desensitized to those things. But for me, one of the ones that I'm feeling this phrase has really come to life is that, yeah, this life is too short. The secret to life, if you ask me, you wake me up in the middle of the night, and I always say that because if you ask somebody in the middle of the night and you ask a question, this person is going to give you the knee-jerk reaction without
Yeah.
thinking before their mind gets in and wants to sound spiritual or smart or intellectual. If you ask me what is the secret to life, I will tell you it ends. But we feel as if this astronaut suit is going to last forever. When one of the main, most important things I realized while having this transcendental experience is that what I really am was never born and it will never die, has always been. And this experience, let's say that I last up to 100, in the quote unquote scheme of existence, I'm not going to say life because that is a very, I would say, even though sounds big, it's a small label and a fantastic label to this experience. It's really like a drop in the bucket to the experience of existence that knows no beginning and knows no end.
Wow. And you know what? You must have read my mind, or because we are connected, you answered exactly what I was going to ask next. If and we're about to close, but if you were to sum it up in three steps, or three things that you have learned from your NDE, from your death, what what could you share, um, with someone else? Those, if there are three, if there's two, if there's five, but no more than three.
The first one, and thank you for asking that because I haven't said like, in order of importance, but the first one would be that this ego that we have, there's nothing wrong with it. Ego has gotten a very bad rap of like, leave the ego at the door, kill your ego.
Yeah,
Well, the ego
yeah,
is what really has kept us alive. The ego is kind of like the the whole conglomerate of identification of this astronaut suit. You know, I was not always Franklin. I was named that. I was put the label on it, but who I was before that. So number one would be that this gift of the ego, because the ego is the one that is able to understand things by contrast. Ooh, I'm cold now. Wow, an hour ago I was cold. I'm sorry, I was hot. So I'm able to understand how cold feels because an hour ago I was feeling hot. So I'm able to see this contrast. The ego is able to notice those things. So this gift of the ego got, in a way, has gotten out of hand. So we have think that because we are, in this vessel, it feels separate that you are there and I'm here, that there is no connection. Where, for example, you just literally read what I was going to say. It's not only here, it's everywhere. We're connected with everything. So the number one thing is to understand that uh, the Holy Spirit that is infusing my experience, that same Holy Spirit is within you. There's no monopoly of a different gods. That's one. Number two is to understand that really, if this life is short, there's a reason for it. And for me, the reason is that every single one of us come with a theme of life. The theme of life is really easy to determine. You just have to be rigorous, honest with yourself, and ask, what is the theme of my life? You could be a person that all throughout your life has had, a bad relationship with finances, or you being somebody who chronically your partners cheat on you, or you've been somebody who, for some reason, you are addicted to whatever it is. But when you're honest with yourself, rigorous honest, um, then you realize that, this has been happening for decades. So um, if that's the case, what is that I need to learn from this in order to transcend, in order to conquer this area of life? So number two is that, yeah, there is a purpose, specifically, and it's not to do good to others necessarily, or build orphanages or hospitals, but it's more of really getting to the bottom of you, and getting to the bottom of you by really asking questions and stay open to the guidance that you're being given. And last, based on that, is that the ultimate purpose, I think, that we're here is to, based on number two, I'm going to use it, to piggyback on it, is to really know ourselves. And if we get to know ourselves, and this process is commonly known as self-inquiry, and this is what I do with when I sit down with others at the end of life. Um, this is probably in the time that we've been together. I've obviously spoken, most of it. When I am sitting down with the person who is dying, I ask so many questions. I do say a few things here and there, but when it boils down to the very end of one existence, has happened to me twice, when the person realizes that, wait a minute, I've only been a thought, and I've been a thought inside of the mind of God, and you are another thought as me. So once you realize that, then you realize that, oh, I'm not this thought, because what I am is connected to what really holds all the thoughts that ever existed, this absolute presence. And once that happens, then it's beautiful, because you stop, one of the many byproducts, taking things personally, because you will realize that it was never, never, never about you. It was always, always about God.
Wow. Thank you so much, Franklin, for joining us, the Champion Nation. Where could our viewers reach you?
You can check my website. It's very easy. It's www.howtodiebeforeyouDie.com.
Wonderful. Thank you, Champion Nation. This has been so heavy. Whoa, this has been spiritually heavy. It's given me a lot to spiritually digest. Thank you so much, and have a transformative champion day.